Jake Morrison had been to many strange places in his life. He had walked on moons made of ice and fought battles in the dark spaces between stars. But nothing had prepared him for this moment. He stood in the biggest room he had ever seen, looking up at creatures that seemed to come from nightmares and dreams. The Galactic Council chamber was like a giant bowl made of crystal. Light came from everywhere and nowhere at once. The walls stretched up so high that Jake could not see the top. Around him, on floating platforms and hanging bridges, sat the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Jake was not alone. Behind him stood 3 other humans. Dr. Lisa Carter was the smartest person he knew. She could cure diseases that had killed millions and create medicines from nothing. Admiral Rick Hayes was a soldier like Jake, but better. He had never lost a battle and never left a friend behind. Captain Ben Rodriguez was the best pilot in the human fleet. He could fly a ship through a storm of meteors and come out without a scratch. But today, they were not here as heroes. They were here as beggars. The creature in front of them was called Zephfin. It looked like a giant jellyfish made of blue light. Its body moved like water, rippling and flowing as it spoke. When it talked, its voice came from everywhere at once, like an echo in a cave. "Humans," Zephfin said, and the word sounded like an insult. "You come before the council again. You ask for help again. You always ask, but you never give." Jake felt his hands shake. Not from fear, but from anger. He had spent 3 months traveling across the galaxy to get here. He had left his dying planet behind, hoping against hope that these creatures would help his people. Now he was starting to understand that hope was a waste of time. "We are not asking for much," Jake said. His voice was steady, but inside he was screaming. 50 million human children are dying. The Nexus Plague is spreading faster than we can treat it. We know you have the cure. We have seen your medical records. Please just give us the formula." Around the chamber, other aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. The Kreks looked like giant insects with too many eyes. They clicked and buzzed at each other. The Tarathi were tall and thin, with skin like tree bark. They whispered in voices that sounded like wind through leaves. "The cure is not free," said another voice. This one came from a Krex called Vexstar. Its compound eyes reflected the light, like broken mirrors. "Your species must pay the price for medicine." Dr. Carter stepped forward. She was small compared to the aliens, but she was not afraid. "We have offered to pay. We have offered resources, technology, even territory. You have rejected every offer. What price do you want?" Zephfin's form rippled with what humans had learned was amusement. "The price is simple. Submit to council authority. Allow us to control your population. Accept our guidance in all things. Become what you were meant to be." "And what is that?" Admiral Hayes asked. His voice was like steel. "Servants," Vexstar clicked. "Like all young species, you reproduce too fast. You consume too much. You ask too many questions. The plague is not a disease. It is a gift. It will teach you to be grateful for what you have." The chamber fell silent. Jake felt something break inside his chest. For years, humans had believed that the council was made up of wise, ancient beings who wanted to help younger species grow and learn. They had been wrong. These creatures were not wise. They were predators. "You created the plague," Lisa said. It was not a question. "We did not create it," Zephfin replied. "The Kreks created it long ago. We simply guided its use. Many species have learned wisdom from the Nexus Plague. Those who survive become grateful. Those who do not were too weak to matter." Jake looked around the chamber. He saw creatures from 100 different worlds, all watching the humans with cold eyes. How many of them had been where humans were now? How many had watched their children die while these monsters decided their fate? "The plague has been used before," he said. "Many times," Vexstar confirmed. "It is an effective teacher. Species learn quickly when their young are dying. They become cooperative. They accept guidance." "You mean they become slaves?" Rick said. "They become useful," Zephfin corrected. "The galaxy is vast, but resources are limited. Order must be maintained. The strong must guide the weak. This is the natural way. Jake felt his anger burning hotter. Natural? You call genocide natural? We call it necessary, Zephlin said. Your species has spread to over 300 worlds in less than 2 centuries. You mine asteroids and build cities on dead moons. You ask questions about things that should not be questioned. You refuse to stay in your place. The plague will teach you humility, and if we refuse to submit, Jake asked, then you will be quarantined. Vexstar clicked. No trade, no travel, no communication with other species. You will be alone until you learn wisdom or until you die. Jake looked at his companions. He saw the same thoughts in their eyes. They had come here believing that the council wanted to help. They had been fools. These creatures had been controlling and killing species for thousands of years. They had turned the galaxy into a prison, and they were the guards. I have one more question, Jake said. Speak, Zephlin commanded. How many species have you done this to? The chamber fell silent again. Jake could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. Many, Zephlin finally said. Those who learned wisdom still serve the council. Those who did not learn no longer exist. Jake nodded. He had his answer. He turned to leave, but Zephlin's voice stopped him. Where do you go, human? The council has not dismissed you. Jake turned back. His smile was cold and hard. The council has no authority over me, not anymore. If you leave without permission, you will be marked as criminals. You will be hunted. You will be destroyed. Then you better bring a lot of ships, Jake said, because we are done being your victims. As the 4 humans walked out of the chamber, Jake heard the aliens talking behind them. They were not worried. They had done this many times before. They thought humans were just another weak species that would either submit or die. They were about to learn how wrong they were. 3 days after leaving the council chamber, Captain Ben Rodriguez was floating in the pilot seat of his ship, the Freedom's Edge. The ship was small but fast, built for exploring the dark spaces between stars. Ben had been flying for 20 years, but he had never received a message like the one coming through his radio now. All human ships, all colonies, all stations, Admiral Hayes' voice crackled through the speakers. This is emergency code red. Stop what you are doing and listen. Ben pressed the button to call his crew to the bridge. Carol Mitchell came first. She was the ship's engineer, a woman who could fix anything with spare parts and determination. Frank Taylor followed her. He was their communications officer, the man who could talk to any alien species in the galaxy. Amy Walker came last. She was young, barely 25, but she understood science better than most people understood. Their own names. What's happening? Carol asked as she sat down. Message from Earth Command, Ben said. Sounds serious? Admiral Hayes' voice continued. What I'm about to tell you will change everything. The Council has been lying to us from the beginning. They are not our friends. They are not wise teachers. They are killers. The crew exchanged worried looks. They had all heard rumors about the meeting with the Council, but nothing official had been released. The Nexus Plague was not an accident, Hayes said. It was a weapon. The Council has been using it to control species across the galaxy for thousands of years. Every time a species gets too strong, too smart, or too independent, they release the plague. Then they offer a cure in exchange for total surrender. Amy's face went white. The children on Earth, she whispered. They're using our children as hostages. But that's not the worst part, Hayes continued. We have discovered something else. The Council has not just been controlling species. They have been harvesting them. When a species refuses to surrender, the Council destroys them completely. They take everything useful and leave nothing behind. Frank leaned forward. The dead? Worlds we found last month. The ones with no life but plenty of ruins. Exactly, Hayes said, as if he could hear them. We sent exploration teams to 17 dead worlds in the past year. Every single one showed the same pattern. Advanced civilization, sudden collapse, complete extinction. The Council has been doing this for 10,000 years. Ben felt his stomach turn. He had seen those dead worlds. Cities that stretched for hundreds of miles, all empty. Space stations that could hold millions of people, all silent. He had thought they were victims of war or disease. Now he knew the truth. We found records, Hayes continued. Hidden in the ruins of a world called Zarian Prime, the beings there tried to warn other species before the Council destroyed them. They left messages in 100 different languages, all saying the same thing. The Council is not what it seems. They are predators. They pretend to be wise and helpful, but they are hunters. Carol's hands were shaking. How many species have they killed? Thousands, Hayes said. Maybe tens of thousands. The galaxy used to be full of life. Now most worlds are empty. The Council has been slowly eating the galaxy, one species at a time. Amy stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the stars looked cold and distant. Why hasn't anyone stopped them? Because they are very careful, Hayes explained. They never attack more than one species at a time. They always make it look like an accident or a natural disaster. They offer help to other species, so everyone thinks they are good. By the time a species realizes the truth, it's too late. Ben pressed the communication button. Admiral, what are our orders? Phase 1 of Operation Exodus begins now, Hayes sighed. We are leaving Council space. All of it. Every human ship, every colony, every station. We are going to find a place where the Council cannot reach us. Then we are going to build something they have never seen before. What's that? Frank asked. Civilization that cannot be controlled, Hayes replied. A species that will never bow to tyrants. And when we are strong enough, we are going to make sure the Council never does this to anyone else. The message ended, leaving the crew in silence. Ben looked at his companions. They were scared, but they were also angry. The Council had made a mistake. They had threatened human children, and humans did not forgive threats to their children. Carol, how long to modify our engines for long-range travel? Ben asked. Give me 6 hours, she said. I can boost our range by 50%. Frank, send a message to all human ships in this sector. Tell them to meet us at Navigation Point 7. Already on it, Frank said, his fingers flying over the controls. Amy, I need you to analyze the star charts. Find us a route that avoids all Council patrols. The Council thinks we're still cooperating, Amy said. They won't expect us to leave. All at once, Ben nodded. The Council had made many mistakes, but the biggest one was thinking that humans were like other species. They thought humans would be grateful for scraps and would accept slavery to save their children. They were wrong. How many human ships are out there? Carol asked. About 12,000, Ben said. Everything from exploration vessels like us to colony ships carrying millions of people. That's a lot of people to move, Frank said. The Council destroyed entire civilizations, Amy said. We're not going to let them add humans to that list. Over the next few hours, messages began coming in from human ships all over the galaxy. Ship captains, colony governors, and station commanders all reported the same thing. They were ready to leave. They were ready to fight. The Council had spent 10,000 years hunting species that were alone and afraid. Now they were going to face something different. They were going to face a species that was angry, organized, and had nothing left to lose. Ben looked out at the stars one more time. Somewhere out there was a place where humans could be free. They just had to find it. 2 weeks after Admiral Hayes sent his message, Lieutenant Commander Paul Davis stood on the bridge of the transport ship New Dawn. Through the front window, he could see something that no human had ever seen before. Thousands of ships floated in the darkness of space, all heading toward the same destination. How many now? Pohl asked Helen Brooks, his navigation officer. 15,437, Helen said, checking her instruments. More are arriving every hour. Paul shook his head in wonder. The biggest human fleet in history had been maybe 200 ships. Now they had over 15,000, and they were all filled with people fleeing from the Council. Men, women, children, entire families carrying everything they owned in cargo containers and storage pods. Sir, we're getting a transmission from the science vessel Discovery, said Communications Officer Tony Garcia. Put it through, Paul ordered. Dr. Greg Stone's face appeared on the main screen. He was the fleet's chief scientist, a man who had spent his life studying alien technology. Today he looked tired, but excited. Paul, you need to see this, Greg said. We've reached the target system. The Council was wrong about everything. Paul felt his heart speed up. The fleet was heading for a region of space that the Council had marked as sterile. According to their records, there were no habitable worlds, no resources, and no reason for anyone to go there. It was supposed to be empty and worthless. What did you find? Paul asked. Paradise, Greg said with a grin. 7 planets, 3 of them perfect for human life. Massive mineral deposits, clean water, breathable atmosphere. The Council didn't mark this place as sterile because it was empty. They marked it as sterile because they wanted to keep it for themselves. Paul looked at Helen. She was smiling for the first time since they had left Earth. There's more, Greg continued. We found ruins. Ancient cities, space stations, technology that's thousands of years old. Paul, we're not the first ones to come. Here, other species tried to escape the Council too. Did they succeed? Paul asked. Some of them, Greg said. We found survivors. They call themselves the Remnants. They've been hiding here for centuries, waiting for someone else to find them. Paul felt a chill run down his spine. Are they hostile? No, Greg said. They're scared. They've been alone for so long that they almost forgot how to talk to other species, but they remember the Council. They remember what happened to their people. The transmission ended, and Paul turned to his crew. They were all thinking the same thing. The Council had been lying about everything. They had hidden this perfect region of space, probably so they could use it as a backup plan if their empire ever collapsed. Orders, sir? Helen asked. Set course. For the 3rd planet, Paul said. It's time to start building our new home. The next few days were busy beyond belief. As more ships arrived, they began the biggest construction project in human history. The planet they chose was harsh, with violent storms and dangerous animals, but it had something that was more valuable than comfort. It had freedom. Captain Susan Miller was in charge of the terraforming project. She had spent her career turning dead worlds into places where humans could live. This planet was not dead, but it was hostile. The storms are going to be a problem, she told Paul during one of their planning meetings. But we can use them. The electrical energy from the lightning could power our entire colony. What about the animals? Paul asked. The planet's native creatures were unlike anything humans had ever seen. Some were as big as buildings, others could fly faster than aircraft. We'll adapt, Susan said. We always do. The Council thinks we're weak because we ask for help. They don't understand that asking for help is what makes us strong. Over the following weeks, the impossible began to happen. The harsh planet started to change. Human engineers worked alongside alien refugees to build cities that could survive the storms. Underground tunnels connected different settlements, creating a network that stretched across continents, but the real surprise came when they met the Remnants face to face. Paul was part of the first contact team, along with Dr. Stone and a translator. Named Linda Murphy, the Remnants looked like living crystals, tall and thin, with bodies that seemed to be made of colored glass. They moved slowly and spoke in musical tones that sounded like wind chimes. We thought we were the last, the Remnant leader said through Linda's translation device. The Council told the galaxy that we were extinct. They told everyone that we had destroyed ourselves in the Civil War. How many of you are there? Paul asked. 47,000, the Remnant replied. We are all that remains of a civilization that once numbered in the billions. The Council came to us 300 years ago. They offered us membership, protection, guidance. We refused. They destroyed our worlds and hunted us across the galaxy. Paul felt anger building in his chest. They told us you were extinct. As they will tell others about you, the Remnant said. This is how they operate. They erase species from history, then tell everyone that the victims brought destruction upon themselves. Dr. Stone leaned forward. You've been studying their Methods, what can you tell us? The Council is not as strong as they pretend, the remnant said. They rule through fear and lies. Most species obey them because they think the Council is all-powerful, but we have seen the truth. The Council is made up of bullies who have never faced real opposition. Until now, Paul said. Until now, the remnant agreed. You humans are different. You do not submit. You do not accept their authority. This frightens them more than they will admit. As the weeks passed, more refugee species began arriving. Word had spread through the galaxy that there was a place where beings could escape the Council's control. They came in small groups, fleeing in secret, carrying stories of oppression and genocide. Paul stood in the command center of New Terra, watching ships arrive from dozens of different worlds. Each one carried people who had lost everything but refused to give up hope. Sir, Helen said, we're detecting a large fleet moving in our direction. Paul felt his blood turn cold. Council ships? No, sir, Helen said with a smile. They're human. Admiral Hayes is leading them personally. Paul watched as hundreds of new ships appeared on the horizon. These were not transport vessels or exploration ships. These were warships, built in secret. While the Council thought humans were still cooperating, Admiral Hayes' voice came through the communication system. Paul, I hope you've been keeping our new home safe. We've got work to do. What kind of work, sir? Paul asked. The kind that makes sure the Council never hurts anyone again, Hayes replied. It's time to show the galaxy what humans can do when they stop asking for permission. Paul looked out at the growing fleet and smiled. The Council had made a mistake. They had given humanity a reason to fight, and they had given them time to prepare. Now they were going to learn what happened when you threatened human children. The war was about to begin. 6 months after humanity had fled Council space, the day everyone had been dreading finally arrived. Admiral Rick Hayes stood in the command center of Fortress Prime, a massive space station built into an asteroid. Through the reinforced windows, he could see the biggest enemy fleet in galactic history. Report, Hayes ordered. 53,000 enemy ships, said Colonel Kate Foster, his chief military advisor. Every Council species is represented. They brought everything they have. Hayes nodded grimly. The Council had spent months gathering forces from across the galaxy. They had told every species that humanity was a threat to galactic peace. They had promised easy victory and rich rewards for those who helped destroy the human rebellion. Our forces? Hayes asked. 8,000 ships, Kate replied. We're outnumbered more than 6 to 1. Good, Hayes said with a cold smile. I was worried this would be too easy. The truth was that humanity had not been idle during their 6 months of freedom. Every human world had become a fortress. Every asteroid had been turned into a weapons platform. Every ship had been equipped with technology that the Council had never seen before. Sir, incoming transmission from the Council fleet, reported Communications Officer Tony Garcia. Put it through, Hayes said. The holographic image of Zephthyn appeared in the center of the room. The alien's jellyfish-like body rippled with confidence and arrogance. Humans of the rebellion, Zephthyn said. You have caused enough trouble. The Council offers you one final chance to surrender. Submit now, and your deaths will be quick. Hayes stepped forward. Zephthyn, I remember you from our last meeting. You haven't changed. Still ugly, still stupid. The alien's form darkened with anger. Your species numbers barely 20 billion across all your pathetic worlds. Our fleet represents the combined might of civilizations that have ruled the galaxy. For thousands of years, you cannot possibly hope to win. You know what your problem is? Hayes said. You've been beating up children for so long that you've forgotten how to fight adults. Colonel Foster stepped into view. Council fleet, you are in violation of human space. You have 30 seconds to withdraw, or we will consider your presence an act of war. Zephthyn's laughter sounded like breaking glass. 30 seconds? You amuse us, humans, very well. When those 30 seconds pass, we will show you what real power looks like. The transmission ended. Hayes turned to his crew. All ships, this is Admiral Hayes, Today we fight not just for humanity, but for every species the Council has murdered. Today we show the galaxy that bullies can be beaten. Today we make them pay. The first attack came exactly 30 seconds later. A squadron of Krex warships, each one 3 times the size of a human destroyer, opened fire on the outer perimeter defenses. Their weapons were designed to crack planets and boil oceans. The energy beams lit up space like miniature suns, but something was wrong. The human defenses absorbed the attack without taking any damage. Impossible, Zepfin's voice crackled across all frequencies. No shields can withstand that much power. You're right, replied Captain Alex Johnson from his ship, the Light of Terra. No shields can. Good thing we're not using shields. What the Council fleet was seeing was technology that should not have existed. For 6 months, human scientists had worked with refugees from dozens of destroyed civilizations. Every species the Council had murdered had left something behind. Hidden databases, abandoned research stations, forgotten experiments. Humanity had found it all and learned from it. How? Zephthyn demanded. Every species you killed, every civilization you destroyed, they all tried to fight back, Johnson explained. They all developed weapons and defenses before you murdered them. We found their work. We improved it. We combined technologies from 100 different species into something new. Something you've never seen before, added Dr. Lisa Carter from the medical ship Hope. Something you can't understand because you've spent 10,000 years stealing instead of creating. The Council fleet launched a full assault. Thousands of ships fired at once, creating a wall of destruction that could have destroyed an entire solar system. The human fleet simply absorbed it all. Our turn, Johnson said quietly. The Light of Terra fired a single shot. The beam of energy was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was made from technologies that combined remnant crystal resonance, ancient Zarian particle manipulation, and human engineering creativity. The shot tore through 12 Krex warships like they were made of paper. Impossible, Zephthyn whispered. Not impossible, Johnson replied. Just new. You've been using the same weapons and tactics for thousands of years because you never had to improve. You never faced real opposition. Well, congratulations, you're facing it now. The battle that followed would be remembered for 1,000 years. The Council fleet attacked with everything they had, using weapons that could destroy moons and tactics that had conquered galaxies. But for every attack they made, the humans had a counter. When the Tarathi used their gravity weapons, human ships simply ignored the gravitational fields. When the Valdari tried to disrupt human communications, they found that human technology used quantum entanglement methods that could not be jammed. This is not possible, Vextar clicked frantically. We have studied human technology. It is primitive. Weak. You studied what we let you see, replied Dr. Stone from the research vessel Discovery. Did you really think we would show you our best stuff while you were planning to kill our children? The turning point came when Captain Johnson demonstrated humanity's most devastating weapon. It was not a gun or a bomb. It was something the Council had never encountered. All human ships, execute Protocol 7, Johnson ordered, across the battlefield. Human vessels began working together in perfect coordination. They shared shields, combined weapons fire, and moved like a single organism. It was something that required absolute trust between different crews. Different ships, different commanders, the Council species had never learned to trust each other. They worked together only because they feared the Council's punishment. But humans worked together because they chose to. Impossible, Zephthyn said for the 10th time that day. Species cannot coordinate like this. There are too many variables, too many chances for error. You're right, Hayes said from Fortress Prime. Species can't do this, but families can, and that's what we are. One big, angry, determined family. The battle raged for 3 days. When it ended, the Council fleet was in full retreat. They had lost over half their ships, while humanity had lost only 17 vessels. This is not over, Zephthyn transmitted as his forces fled. The Council will return with more ships, more weapons. Let them come, Hayes replied. We'll be waiting. As the enemy fleet disappeared into hyperspace, Hayes looked around the command center. His people were exhausted but victorious. They had done something that no species had accomplished in 10,000 years. They had beaten the Council in open battle, but Hayes knew this was just the beginning. The Council would not accept defeat. They would return with everything they had, and when they did, humanity would be ready. 2 years after the first battle, Admiral Rick Hayes stood in a place he had never expected to see. He was in the old council chamber, the same crystal hall where Jake Morrison had walked out 2 years ago. But everything was different now. The floating platforms that once held council members were empty. The walls that had seemed so mighty were cracked and broken. Where once sat the most powerful beings in the galaxy, now sat representatives from 300 different species, all working together as equals. The last council stronghold has fallen, reported General Don Clark. His uniform was dirty and torn from the final battle, but his eyes were bright with victory. Zephtham and the other council leaders have been captured alive. The chamber erupted in celebration. Beings who had been slaves for thousands of years cheered in languages that humans were still learning to understand. The remnants sang in their crystal voices. Former council species who had joined the rebellion roared their approval, but Hayes felt no joy. The war had cost too much. Entire solar systems had been destroyed in the fighting. Billions of beings had died. Some species had been wiped out completely. Victims of the Council's final desperate attacks. Dr. Greg Stone approached the podium. He looked older than his years, worn down by the terrible things he had discovered in the Council's archives. "We have finished analyzing the Council's records," Stone said, his voice heavy with sadness. "The scope of their crimes is beyond anything we imagined. Over the past 10,000 years, they destroyed more than 50,000 civilizations. Trillions of beings were murdered. Entire regions of the galaxy were left empty and dead." The chamber fell silent. Even the beings who had suffered under the Council were shocked by the numbers. Dr. Jane Phillips, the chief scientist of the New Alliance, stepped forward. "But we have also found something else." The Council kept genetic samples. They preserved DNA, cultural records, art, music, and literature from every species they destroyed. They kept trophies of their victims. Hayes saw hope flicker in the eyes of the assembled beings. "We cannot bring back the dead," Phillips continued, "but we can preserve their memory. We can learn from their knowledge. We can make sure their sacrifices were not meaningless." She activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy as it was today, and as it had been 10,000 years ago. The difference was shocking. The ancient galaxy had been full of light, with millions of civilizations spread across every region. The modern galaxy was mostly dark, with only scattered pockets of life. "This is what the Council did," Phillips sighed. "They turned a galaxy full of life into a wasteland. But now we can begin to heal it." Captain Alex Johnson, now serving as the military commander of the New Alliance, stood to address the chamber. "The war is over, but our work is just beginning. We have thousands of dead worlds to restore. We have lost technologies to recover. We have entire species to bring back from extinction." Hayes walked to the center of the chamber. Around him, he could see the incredible diversity of life that had survived the Council's reign of terror. Beings of crystal and metal, energy and flesh, all working together toward the same goal. The Council believed that order required domination, Hayes said. They thought that peace could only exist if everyone obeyed the same rules, followed the same laws, thought the same thoughts. They were wrong. He gestured to the assembled delegates. "Look around this chamber. Every being here is different. We have different cultures, different languages, different ways of thinking, but we are working together because we choose to, not because someone is forcing us to." A young remnant named Silthara stepped forward. She had been born during the war, one of the first new remnants in 3 centuries. What happens to the Council leaders? What happens to those who committed these crimes? Hayes had been dreading this question. The easy answer would be execution. The Council leaders had murdered trillions of beings. They deserved to die. But Hayes knew that easy answers were often wrong answers. They will face justice, Hayes said. But not the kind of justice they gave to others. They will spend the rest of their lives helping to rebuild what they destroyed. They will work to restore the dead worlds. They will serve the species they tried to destroy. Some beings in the chamber protested. They wanted revenge. They wanted blood? Hayes understood their anger, but he also knew that revenge would make them no better than the Council. The Council ruled through fear and hatred, Hayes continued. If we do the same, then we become what we fought against. We will be better than they were. Dr. Stone activated another display, this one showing construction projects across the galaxy. We have already begun the restoration. Former Council worlds are being converted into research centers. Dead planets are being brought back to life. Species that were thought extinct are being restored from genetic samples. Captain Johnson pointed to a star system on the map. Our first major project is here. We are building a space station that will serve as the new center of galactic government. Not a place where a few beings rule over many, but a place where all species have an equal voice. What will you call it? Asked a delegate from the former Council species who had joined the Rebellion, Freedom Station, Johnson replied. Because that is what this is all about. The freedom to live without fear. The freedom to grow and learn and explore. The freedom to be different without being punished for it. Hayes looked around the chamber one more time. 3 years ago, humanity had been facing extinction. They had been alone, desperate, and afraid. Now they were part of something bigger than they had ever imagined. The day humans abandoned the Council was the day the universe learned to fear, Hayes said. But not the kind of fear the Council used. The universe learned to fear injustice. It learned to fear oppression. It learned to fear the idea that some beings are more important than others. He paused, looking at each delegate in turn. Today we begin a new age. An age where no species will ever again face extinction because they refuse to bow to tyrants. An age where diversity is celebrated, not punished. An age where the strong protect the weak instead of preying on them. The chamber erupted in celebration again, but this time Hayes joined in. Outside the crystal walls, construction ships from dozens of different species worked together to build something that had never existed before. A galaxy where freedom was not just a dream, but a promise that would be kept for generations to come. The universe had learned to fear humanity, but only because humanity had taught it to hope.